Welcome back to Bitcoin Season 2, the weekly live stream. We do 2 streams every week. One is on Mondays, where I cover news and metrics and topical stuff, and Thursdays, when I do a more deep dive podcast interview type. Still in the middle of releasing a bunch of content from Bitcoin 2024 Nashville, so be on the lookout for that. I've got a great interview with David Say, Zach from Ord.io, Mike Hamilton of Mutable Trees. So I'm really excited for that content to keep coming out. But yeah, Bitcoin Season 2, produced by Blockspace Media. Make sure you check out our other media products, content, Guart Show, Mining Pod. Go to blockspace.media to see all of the content we put out. This is a live stream, so I'm going to start out with some runes and some ordinals data, some Bitcoin metrics, and then I'll get into this topic today of BitcoinFi. It's a broad emerging concept. I'll probably bias towards some of the more degen topics. And then we'll bookend this at the end with a conversation with Matt Luongo of Thesis to talk about the wrapped Bitcoin news, the WBTC news, which I think is interesting. Not a lot of the Bitcoin podcasts are covering it. So without further ado, let's just get into this. So not a lot has changed as far as like activity on chain in the Ordinals ecosystem. This Dune dashboard from Data Always shows that basically since the halving, you can see that new inscription activity is anemic. There is very little going on. Now, when I flip over to runes, you can see there are like runes activity, runes mints. That's fun. But new inscriptions are down bad. The only other 2 things I'll look at is we've seen $272 million in fees attributed to inscriptions so far. And then also we can see my other favorite chart, which is the monthly inscription share. So we can see like what types of inscriptions are being put on chain. Are they JSON? Are they these network protocol ideas? Are they images? Are they text, BRC20 transfers? So still basically confirming what we saw initially is that whenever fees go down, the ratio of JPEGs to the other types of inscriptions goes up. Let's look at the market data. I'm gonna kind of fly through this. This is Domo's dashboard. We can see that overall volume by marketplaces is still very anemic. Let me switch to my other screen. Okay. We can see that here on this, this is just overall volume by marketplaces. We really just peaked this past spring and March and April. So not a lot of transaction activity on the marketplaces, on secondary marketplaces. Again, I'd love for my bags to go up, but this is the reality. We see this to be kind of a cyclical behavior. I will make a point to note that if we look at the 7-day chart on Magic Eden, the floors of all of the top 10 collections, except for No Ordinary Kind, are up pretty significantly on the week. Node Monks, Puppets, Cats, Runestone, OMB, Pizza Ninjas, and Arsic hit a multiple X bid. So, yeah, this is fun. This is exciting. We're still, maybe that was the peak of bottom. I don't know. I'm just relaying what is happening. The other metric I'll look at is from Alchemia's dashboard, where we can see basically since the halving on April 20th, 19th, and 20th, about a third of all transactions by number on chain are runes transactions. So runes, depending on the day, will sometimes be the majority of transactions by number on Bitcoin. They still take up a little under a third of the blocks by weight. Going over to runes again, we see Casey Rodamore is very sad. He may have to commit seppuku here. This is a joke referencing that if the total market cap of runes was under $1 billion, Casey would have to take drastic action. So it's just been down and to the right. Runes continue to not catch a bid. They have demonstrated a little bit of recovery in the past couple days, but still not looking very optimistic. And then the last on the Ordinals Runes Bitcoin metrics is this dashboard on Genie data from Poshi to show that Runes daily mints remain pretty consistent 10 to 40,000 mints per day. Mints are still if we look at this Rune's transaction distribution by type, mints are still the overwhelming number of transactions in this category, meaning that people are just mainly speculating and not really trading as much on secondary. So Rune's still in the throw shit at the wall, see if anything sticks period. Okay, so BitcoinFi. I see this term now emerging. It's pretty hot. We've heard people try to introduce terms like OrdFi, meaning like Ordinals type DeFi activity. Again, this is DeFi given a broad, ambiguous definition, just like DeFi in the broader crypto ecosystem. But now people are figuring out how to leverage assets against each other, whether on Bitcoin L1 or off chain. Bunzi had this great tweet, which I think summarizes like this particular narrative going on. And I will try not to nitpick it too much, but he says, Bitcoin's programmability race is heating up. Which approach do you think will lead the pack? Arch Network, OPCAT, Fractal, OPNET. I think it's interesting here because I voted on this. I voted OPCAT because I don't think OPCAT really fits into the category here. It's not, these other types of things are like meta protocol schemes. And OPCAT is a software proposal. And really, I don't think its main pitch is that that allows Bitcoin programmability. I think this is where the two camps in the Bitcoin degen crowd and the Bitcoin development crowd separate, in that like OPCAT enables a lot of things, specifically covenants and vaults, and trustless in and out from Bitcoin. But that said, there seems to be a certain type of narrative emerging among the like let's program stuff on Bitcoin from the Arch Network, Fractal, and OPNET camp. This is like the kind of the growth out of the Ordinals discussion, where a lot of these folks are like talking about these types of things. I'll try to briefly race through what they are, just so that we have them on record, so you have them on your radar. And so I'll track these as these kind of come out and develop. So first was Fractal Bitcoin, brought to you by Ordinals Titan and the dominant company in Ordinals, Unisat. Fractal is basically just a merge mine sidechain. There's nothing new. There's nothing really like innovative going on here. It's a sidechain, merge mine sidechain with a twist. Not that the documentation is not fully out, but it is pretty interesting because Unisat led the 80% of all the new inscription activity on Bitcoin through their inscription tool, and is the definitive like BRC20 place to go to trade and mint and all that stuff. So Fractal Bitcoin basically just says we're going to occasionally post something to Bitcoin, and then we're going to add some blocks in between. It's basically Bitcoin with a faster block time. They post a root state to Bitcoin occasionally, and that's the basic idea. There's not a lot of differentiation. I understand that they may be adding OPCAT on this, but that's, we've seen BSV and BCH and Liquid have OPCAT, and so I don't know if it'll like reveal anything novel about this particular opcode, but this is pretty interesting. This is a bit of the thesis for why BRC20 might come back, because if Unisat is capturing the minds and hearts and degen speculation of the Asian crowd, this is a very compelling thesis. It's currently in testnet for delivery, quote, on mainnet in September, I believe. The next one is OPNET, and I think this is kind of hilarious because everyone thinks that I'm behind it. This is like an inside joke because it's from the CBRC20 guys. So basically, this is a little bit different scheme, and I think it's kind of interesting. It's kind of novel. I go back and forth personally on like what I think about it. They're basically posting commands to an off-chain indexer with its own smart contract logic. Again, hand-wavy smart contract logic, where like you just give instructions to an off-chain indexer through your Bitcoin transactions. So I think it's pretty interesting. It really caught virality and fire this past week, really the past 2 or 3 days. And they, again, are in testnet. These guys are very good at marketing. I think the main compelling like near-term product or DApp you might, as a user, see on this is either their Moto Swap, which, again, is kind of coming back, going to be one of the early dApps supposedly launched on this. And the op.fun or opnet.fun, I forget what it's called, but it's basically the pitch is pump.fun on Bitcoin. You love to see it. Everybody's been saying this has got to happen. I mean, so here it is. It might be on OpNet. I anticipate having all of these different folks on Bitcoin Season 2 sometime, hopefully kind of as they near launch to mainnet. I just want to interview and like talk through how they're building things. And I also want to ask some critical questions because I want to be neutral and challenge these folks to really justify their product. So OpNet, very interesting. You'll see me in the OpNet chat asking questions and participating in the conversation. So, and the other one, again, from the Bunzi tweet is the Arch network. This is basically a similar type deal as OpNet with, again, a little bit different component to it. Arch basically posts state to Bitcoin in the UTXO. They basically use an inscription envelope to say, here's the current state of this particular smart contract. And they will, quote, chain states, which will then have an SVM, the Solana virtual machine, off-chain, coordinating and referencing this on-chain Bitcoin state. If you didn't understand or follow any of this, that's fine. I'm trying to breeze through it. I'm being reductive. Also, a lot of these, it's not entirely clear how they work. We still need to see, I need to dig into the implementation, and the implementation sometimes is confusing because some of the documentation is not fully out there. And these do not comprise the entirety of what I would call the BitcoinFi revolution. This is just like the near-term degen stuff that people are talking about. There's an entirely other category of like yield on Bitcoin type products. Some of them are like very simple. Lock your Bitcoin up in a multi-sig and get a comparable like pegged token in some capacity on another chain or network. This is also, I would say falls under the broad umbrella of BitcoinFi. Why am I talking about this? Because I think this is a major narrative and Bitcoin Season 2 is going to cover this. The other thing I'm gonna get crucified if I don't talk about Tapper Track. This is another thing. It's kind of thrown, from back in the fall when some of these tokens were launched. You'll hear a lot of pitch and discussion about this, but it's basically like, I would just honestly call it BRC20 with different rule sets and a different indexer set. This is also in the category of BitcoinFi. They have really owned the term OrdFi. Again, what do these things mean? A lot of this is branding and trying to lure people in to like get excited about these types of assets. And we're going to run back a lot of the DeFi mechanics of last cycle. To what end? We will see. I want to be discussing this from the perspective of someone who's pretty engaged in the world of Bitcoin. So anyway, I've got Matt Luongo in the backstage. I'm just going to bring him up here. We're just going to chat. Matt, welcome to Bitcoin Season 2.
Hello, sir. Yeah, the water's warm.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for hanging out in the background while I speed through all the BitcoinFi stuff.
No, it was good. It was good. You're keeping closer track than I am on some of these, so it was handy.
It's a full-time job, man. It's so much work, and I thought you'd be a useful person to talk about one of the more interesting news events. And I'm surprised like this wrapped Bitcoin, the WBTC news has mainly only been talked about in like DeFi and ETH circles and not on the Bitcoin circle side.
Yeah, it shows the culture and the like community drift. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but can you just like summarize for me what's going on? I'll just throw some questions at you after that.
Yeah. So caveat emptor, I don't have a bunch of special knowledge here, and I have a competing project and yada yada. Don't worry, you'll hear about it. But so here's what's happened. A lot of Ethereum's Bitcoin flavored DeFi is built on WBTC. It's maybe $9 billion right now. I think it's 153,000 BTC under management. And the way this project came about is kind of interesting, right? Because it wasn't like someone had a master plan and they were like, we're going to bring Bitcoin to Ethereum. What happened was that the folks at BitGo realized that people just needed a solution. And so they kind of, and I mean this in the nicest way, they kind of slapped one together. So they said, okay, we're a custodian. We're good at that. So if anyone wants to hold WBTC, and you mentioned bridges like this kind of earlier in the stream here, if anyone wants to have this token on Ethereum, what they can do is they can send us Bitcoin to a trust, which is, this like legally kind of protected structure in the US, and they'll do KYC. And then once they do that, there's this idea of merchants. And what these merchants can do is basically say, yeah, let's mint WBTC on Ethereum. And so it's this process where it's not just BitGo, but it's kind of just BitGo, right? Because like they have the Bitcoin, but well-respected custodian, and I can vouch. I mean, I like the team a lot. We've worked with them on projects over the years, and they're great at what they do on the custody side. But here's where things got a little shocking, and I'm going to try to get a little bit less salacious because
go for it. I invite you to because it's hard to be apolitical about this because it's a very hot political button right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna pull my punches probably more than you might expect, right? Like, here's what I saw happen. I didn't even see the original announcement from BitGo. What I saw happen was MakerDAO announcing that they're basically, that they would like to delist WBTC. And so to give you an idea of what that means, so first, there's an entire governance process. This proposal, though, came from a very OG person at MakerDAO, Monet Supply, could follow on Twitter. And, the thing you need to understand is WBTC is 10% of the backing for DAI. So this is a lot of money.
The stable coin from MakerDAO. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, this is a lot of money. And suddenly, because MakerDAO and DAI, it's really one of the first DeFi projects on Ethereum. Every other DeFi project is like, wait a second, they're slow. And if they're responding this way, we need to do something. And so from my perspective, what I saw is I saw this MakerDAO post, and then I got 300 DMs about like, Jesus, we're looking for another solution. Like, we're all very uncomfortable. And so since then, so why? So if you go back to the MakerDAO post, the concerns are that Friday, which typically is not when you want to announce good news. That's typically when you're trying to announce bad news. We learned that perhaps BitGo is going to be transferring its custody to a joint with Justin Sun. And so
Justin Sun again, yeah. I mean, if you don't know who Justin Sun is, he is the iconic head of TRON, and he's a very controversial figure and has a good history of acting in his own self-interest. At the expense of the ecosystem, and he's made a shit ton of money doing it. And he's not a positively respected figure in the broader crypto space.
I'll give him probably a little bit more respect than a lot of people will, which is TRON has the most USDT of any chain. And if you travel in Latin America and Southeast Asia, you'll see that actually people who are doing money transmitter businesses and remittances are using USDT on TRON. So they've got something. And yeah, obviously Justin's hugely controversial. I have one selfie with him. And for a long time, it was kind of fun with Bitcoin maxis to tell Ethereum people like, well, TRON's better than Ethereum. So, there's this whole kind of funny backstory.
Yeah. All the stables are on TRON. It's like crazy. It's like it backends a lot of the like gray market for dollars out there.
That's right. So it's got some product market fit, and we shouldn't, Justin shouldn't be underestimated or just, well, he's just a this or just that. Like, no, he's not. No, he's playing 4D chess, and so like even if you don't like him, he deserves a little bit of like respect and thought. But what I thought was interesting about all this is like I guess one point about the TRON stuff, which is just, study HBTC. So I think that's what people are concerned about. So HBTC is another supposedly a Bitcoin-backed peg token, and that's Huobi BTC, and it's off 50% off the peg. And so I think people are seeing that. They're seeing this as a step towards something that could really threaten WBTC. But my response to all this stuff is like, why in the hell should we care? This is a system Like, I really shouldn't care what billionaire is custodying my BTC. I shouldn't have billionaires custodying my BTC. That's against the whole space. So yeah. So I mean, obviously, that's where TBTC comes in and where we want to hopefully help.
Yeah. So just some like, give me your honest thoughts. Like, why has WBTC been the clear winner to date?
Yeah.
So like, why is TBTC not more adopted? You've been around for a long time.
Yeah, we have. I mean, I could probably make that. I would ask that same question about like, why don't people use multi-sigs on Bitcoin more? And I think ease of use wins. We can have the same question about self-custody, right? And unfortunately, if you want people to change their behavior, either you have to give them a 10x experience improvement, or they get an object lesson, right? And I think what's happening right now is an object lesson. People are freaking out. Some people think this is FUD. Sometimes FUD is real, sometimes not. I don't know. I don't know if this is a real risk to people's WBTC, but it's like, in the best, the best version of our space is like, this should never happen with your money. You should never be afraid of a random counterparty that you didn't even maybe know was there. So as far as TBTC's growth, what I've seen is people don't want to bridge their Bitcoin back and forth between a lot of chains. What they want to do is they want to buy it on a chain and get the economic properties of Bitcoin. And it's very rare that they actually bridge. So that's been my experience so far. It's made it very difficult to grow a decentralized alternative to TBT or to WBTC. Now, obviously, it seems like the tides are turning, and we'll see what the numbers look like this week.
Yeah, this is really interesting. This is the first time in years that I've logged onto MakerDAO forum. It's like been pretty boring as far as I'm aware. It's not really no discussions really bubbled up. I see like a Hasu tweet every now and then, but this seems pretty notable. Do you feel that like Bitcoin on other chains is just various types of wrap Bitcoin has been a pretty simple, straightforward, uninteresting product, I would say. It's just been kind of a base asset to be loaned against sometimes.
Sure.
Do you think that's going to change over the next few years?
Oh God, I hope so.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing with season 2? Like, okay, like I get if all we're doing is launching new assets and then we're saying they're on Bitcoin, like, come on. I mean, I know that's where like everyone wants to go. Everyone wants to like make a buck and fool around. But like, I'm much more interested in, if you call yourself like a Bitcoin L2, and I always say that with air quotes, your base asset should be Bitcoin. And so I want to see people using it for gas. I want to see them use it for lending, but it should be the collateral for, I mean, gosh, why are all our prediction markets not Bitcoin based, right? So like, we need to see that change. And ETH really has a lot of power there because it was the choice for so long for all these new products.
Yeah, that's a very Bitcoin season 2 type statement in that like we've got this Bitcoin asset. It's been kind of in its own little world, and as the rest of the crypto ecosystem tries to justify its existence, some of it may justify its existence. Prediction. I'm glad you brought up prediction markets because like that's the hot topic. That's why I've not covered a whole lot here because it hasn't really crossed paths with Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin does, it would make the most sense for Bitcoin to interact with.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, look, we're finally seeing all the stuff on Bitcoin Talk over the years. Like it's actually kind of at the point where the tech is there and the UX is still terrible, but it's getting better. And like the problem is just like, okay, well now we just need to bring it back to Bitcoin. So be that a meta protocol, be that a side chain or a bridge or whatever. I think honestly, anyone who's doing it, I'm all for it. And obviously I'd prefer be decentralized and censorship resistant. So like I think that's important. So what we're doing this week is like, okay, how hard are we going to go right now?
Yeah.
Because like I feel like we haven't had the last time Bitcoin on any other chain grew, notably at all, was DeFi summer in 2020. That's when WBTC got big. Since then, it's mostly bled, and I think this is an opportunity for sort of like a mass rejiggering of the market structure on chain, and that'd be great because I think honestly, getting people to put their Bitcoin in a safer bridge is super boring relative to getting people who have the ETF to get on chain. Like that's a really interesting problem. So like, I'd love to hop over this and solve it one way or the other.
Ooh, I hadn't thought about that. You introduced a new idea. that maybe we'll run it back and talk more about the financialization of Bitcoin and the other type of bridge that I think you may be hinting at. This is really interesting, Matt. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I know I only really briefly touched on the MakerDAO Wrap BTC thing, but you're one of the folks I think most prominent talking about the space and building interesting products. So I anticipate we will chat again on this topic on Bitcoin Season 2. Otherwise, I'm going to take you down and wrap this thing up.
Thank you, sir. And hey, if anyone's afraid of their WBTC, hit us up. TBTC is waiting for your deposits.
Cool.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right. Thank you so much for checking out Bitcoin Season 2. Make sure to subscribe to the new YouTube channel. So we're migrating to our own YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe to that. It's Bitcoin Season 2, Bitcoin one word, season one word, number 2 is the handle. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining, and check out blockspace.media for other Blockspace content. Adios.